In our culture, dreaming stories have been passed on by our elders since the beginning of time. They are handed down through the generations to connect us to our past, present and future, and help our people retain a sense of who they are. Today I'll share a new story, the story of our peoples and Australia Post. Australia Post has a long and proud history of working with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities. It began in 1870 with the appointment of Mary Ellen Cooper, the first Aboriginal woman to become a postmistress. Over a century later, when Australia Post launched their first Reconciliation Action Plan, or RAP, they formalised their commitment to providing equal opportunities and increasing the cultural diversity of their workforce. Today they continue to be a pioneer for change and have a genuine vision for providing equal employment opportunities and growing relationships with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities. The Australia Post mob continues to make valuable contributions to the organisation as respected and valued employees, leaders and partners. During a stretch wrap between 2017 and 2020, Australia Post took on several initiatives to benefit their First Nations workforce and business partners, including spending over $21 million with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander owned businesses. By 2022, they aim to make their suppliers even more diverse and bring this total up to $40 million. They also granted over $700,000 to support community organisations. Of this, $72,000 went to 15 projects supporting First Nations communities. Since 2007, they have been providing education and training pathways for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities. These traineeships have often provided new career opportunities within Australia Post, including just last year when a new mechanical engineering apprenticeship program began with Star Trek. In 2018, they formed a collaborative partnership with CBeyond Coaching and TAFE New South Wales to create the Indigenous Emerging Leaders Program. This program develops essential leadership and management skills so Aboriginal employees can become key influencers as they grow into business leaders. Australia Post Employee Care Program provides Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander employees personalised assistance with their health and wellbeing, personal development and career guidance. Its success continues to strengthen employees' engagement and improve relationships across the organisation. All large gatherings at Australia Post begin with an acknowledgement of country. This is a sign of respect and demonstrates commitment to reconciliation between peoples. In July of 2019, the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander flags were installed alongside the Australian flag at the Sydney head office. These are now permanent fixtures and stand proudly as additions to the Reconciliation mural. In 2020, the flags were also installed at more facilities across New South Wales, Victoria and Queensland. What I've shared today is only part of the whole story, but it reflects Australia Post's genuine commitment to reconciliation, inclusivity and creating an environment that is accessible for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, now and in the future. Australia Post's opportunity now is to continue to challenge and lead the way for others. With each new RAP, they must continue to make genuine commitments towards supporting First Nations employment, skills and leadership development, mental health and wellbeing programs, and be allies in improving both social procurement and childhood literacy. Our combined hope is that as we continue to walk this path together, we can all become champions for change. Our hope is that the more we all do, the more we move towards a reconciled country.
Dungari woman raised in Gumbaynggirr country. I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians, the Darug people, on the land in which we meet today, and pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. I extend that respect and acknowledgement to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today in this room, and also to you out there watching live. I would also like to thank Australia Post for their contribution to the Indigenous employees and their families. As you will see, on the cover of the Reconciliation Action Plan, they've included not only myself, but my mum and my brother. It goes to show that Australia Post is family orientated, and I would now like to pass it over to Rebecca Williams, the Indigenous Employment Consultant.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you all joining from wherever you may be joining from. Talia, thank you so much for that acknowledgement to country, that was amazing. I'd also like to pay my respects to the Darug people as we are here today at Minchinbury Star Track, filming and coming to you guys live from there. My name is Rebecca Williams and I'm the Indigenous Inclusion Consultant here at Australia Post. I support our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander staff and their managers and the programs across Northern Territory, Queensland, New South Wales and ACT. So today, guys, what we're going to be doing is we really want to bring this RAP, this Reconciliation Action Plan that you see in my hot little hands here. We really would love for you guys to understand the impact that this document actually has on our people. So today, we've got a few things lined up. So to start with though, I would like to welcome Joshua Scales. Joshua Scales is a proud Gubbi man and he works with us here at Minchinbury Star Track as our one and only Indigenous apprentice mechanic, our diesel mechanic. So thank you, thanks for joining. Mark Armour, who is our workshop mechanical manager. He's a proud Darug man as well. So thank you very much for joining. So I thought we'd talk today about the actual apprenticeship program. So Josh, I'd really love to understand how has this program and this apprenticeship program actually impacted you in your personal life and your family?
This opportunity that I have here today, the apprenticeship has impacted me personally, as it's helped me enjoy work for the first time. I've been working since I was 15 years old. I'm 20 now and I've enjoyed my first year here at Star Track and I enjoy this apprenticeship and I love what I'm doing. This is what I've wanted to do for a while and I'm glad to have the opportunity to actually do what I want. It's had a great impact on myself and my family. I know my whole family is proud of me and it's nice to be able to teach my older brothers and my dad and my other family members what I learn here at work and what I learn at TAFE. Teach them about their own vehicles and what I'm learning, and it's nice to be a role model and to be teaching someone instead of always learning from someone for once.
Yeah.
I really enjoy it.
Great. And I hear you've gotten, with your results, you actually got 100%. You smashed it. Yeah.
I really enjoy TAFE and I enjoy the people I go to TAFE with, and I think that's why I was able to go so well last year. Hopefully get the same results again this year.
Excellent. We'll be watching. So Mark, tell me, I would really love to understand, as the mechanical manager, how has this impacted this program with Josh being on site? How has it impacted the workplace?
It's impacted workplace by the guys down there, the fully trained mechanics down there training Josh, learn their skills. Each mechanic has a different way of doing the same job. So Josh learns various ways of, changing a brake light globe to pulling the cylinder head out of a truck. There's a diverse range of repairs we do here, so he'll learn everything from that. We have various different types of trailers. Sliders, not many people know what they are. It's a trailer that goes backwards and forwards, the A-box slides. We have a lot of problems. He'll learn all those repairs and then, he can travel around Australia once he gets his fully fledged mechanic. He can go everywhere, and he can transfer within state to different, we have a workshop in Melbourne, we have one in Perth, we have one in Brisbane, positions comes up there, he can transfer. 10 years down the track, he could be the workshop manager.
He could take over your role.
He could take over my role, I'd be sitting back with feet up. And he can have all the worries in the world. But, there's a diverse range he can do here. And the good thing about it, he wants to learn. Like you said, he got 100%, in his first year. He wants to learn. He's happy to learn, and he doesn't want to just sit around pushing a broom and doing stuff like that. He's in there, you know, what can I do next? You know, so he is a credit for what he's done, you know, and he should be proud of his achievements, what he's done here. And moving forward, we'd like to spread this across the whole, you know, red and blue network, as they call it, you know, the Australia Post Group, to have mechanics, apprentice mechanics in, you know, Brisbane, Melbourne, Perth, electrical engineers in the red side. You know, we've got sortation systems across every network. So, you know, let's make it bigger and better.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's get it across.
Definitely. No pressure on you there, bud.
No, well, that's it. You know,
Yeah.
He's the first one, as we call him. He's the chosen one, and he's doing well. He's, you know, he should be proud of what he's achieved so far.
Yeah.
It's excellent what he's done.
Fantastic.
And it's an excellent thing. You know, we've got Mr. Troy King here, who's, you know, a big believer in this, and he's helped us greatly with this. So it's
Fantastic.
great.
Thank you. Thanks very much for both of you for joining today and talking about the apprenticeship program. We will be watching and seeing how you progress, Josh. And thank you, Mark, for joining.
No, thank you, Beck.
So we're also going to talk about today our Emerging Leaders program. So the Emerging Leaders program has actually been going, we started in 2018 and we did 2019 as well, and we're just about to embark on our program 1 next month actually. So we've had 36 participants actually go through both years, and we've actually had 100% success rate, which is amazing, and we should be super proud of that. I think it's one of the only TAFE programs across New South Wales that's actually had a group of people go through and actually get 100%. So we should be definitely proud of that as a company. I truly believe it's to do with a lot of the fact that we have the cultural component. So today I've got Donna Howard here from St Leonard's Delivery Facility, and I've also got Paul Dargan. Paul Dargan is a AM fleet supervisor here at Minchinbury as well. So Paul went through the program in 2018 and Donna went through in 2019. Donna, the cultural component, like I said, is really important, I think. What was the impact for you personally having that cultural component of the program?
Every person's journey through life is an individual journey, and I believe that comes through the cultural side of things as well. And on a personal level, for me, the Indigenous Emerging Leaders program opened up conversation in my family that was never had about the culture and about the Indigenous side, which came from my grandfather and my great-grandfather. And sadly, it wasn't spoken about due to violence and it not being very good at the time. So I think my mum tried to shelter me a lot when I was younger. But since doing the program, we have had conversations. I now know where my grandfather came from, and I now know where my great-grandfather came from, and it's really made me embrace the Indigenous side of myself and appreciate that side of my life that I never really focused on before. So my mum and my grandmother and I have always been very, very close, but in a strange way, it's brought us closer, weirdly, and I didn't think that was possible, but that all comes through conversation about history and my ancestors and things like that. So in my soul, it really affects me, and it just makes me feel good and proud and feel a way that I've never felt before. So I couldn't thank the program enough. I've been with Post 30 years, and it's the best program I've ever done, and I've done a lot of them.
Especially over those time, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
No, thank you. Thank you for sharing that personal story.
That's all right. You're welcome.
And I suppose that just sort of goes back to when T was talking about it in the Acknowledgement to Country, how Post really does support. It's not only just us as staff, it impacts our family as well.
Oh, it does. It does. It opens up conversations that would never, without this program, these conversations would never have been had. And as I got older, I did start to look at more of the cultural side of myself and my ancestors and things, but I was not scared, but it wasn't an open thing that was spoken about, so I didn't really know how to ask the questions, whereas I think the program just opened up the opportunity, and it was amazing. So I can't thank Australia Post or yourself or the program enough. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you.
No, thank you. Paul, so you were in our very, very first group with myself actually in 2018. So the Emerging Leaders program is about empowering our people and becoming leaders. So what I know from where we are now in Minchinbury to before, we didn't have a lot of identified staff that actually were working, well, they were working here, but they didn't identify. You were a big game changer in having so many mob here at Minchinbury actually, start to be proud and identify who at work and bring their whole self to work. So tell us a bit about how you did that.
Well, again, yeah, thankful for the opportunity. So, empowerment's a big thing. It's not just a work-related feeling and emotion. It's also transferred into home life as well. And over the last few years, I got to look at myself in a way where I wanted to know what the future looked like for me, career-wise, and being a parent for the first and second time, going into the course. With a young family, so you want to be a role model for your family and also represent yourself while at work and your people, because again, like a few of you have touched on, the family connection transferred from post to the staff. It can also be transferred from staff to staff, and that's what I wanted to play my part as well. Little things like NAIDOC week and putting on a barbecue and having a chat with a lot of the staff. One by one, because they were either wanted to know what was on the barbecue for the day or what the cause was about, and then to know that they were identified or not. And it could only just be a simple conversation, and how to direct them in a way to identify for themselves, because they might be not as connected as we all are, and it might just that's a first step. And yeah, we have gradually over the last 2 years increased numbers year by year, which is great, and can hopefully continue to grow.
Yeah.
So yeah,
just to you, bud.
I'm happy to do that, and it's something so simple and easy, and the reward for yourself as well. Like you take home the emotion you've done something great, and being a role model, before and after work, during work as well.
Okay, great. Thank you both for joining me and talking about the Emerging Leaders Program. I really appreciate your time. And Josh and Mark too, thank you very much. So guys, what we're going to do is now we're going to watch a few videos of some of our staff. They may not know they're going to be on here, but it's all about a reconciliation, and we just wanted to give a bit of reflection on reconciliation. So please enjoy.
Reconciliation is about building relationships, and unless we can work together, we're never going to achieve the life we truly deserve.
I'm really proud that Australia Post has a reconciliation action plan to help bridge the gap, a gap that's been getting wider and wider for too long. We all need to play our part in this. We're in this together.
Reconciliation is so important. It's needed to be able to share truths, take action, and for others to learn and come together. Doing so by respecting our mob's culture and each other.
Australia Post has been a long-time supporter of reconciliation, and your Stretch Reconciliation Action Plan is a great demonstration of that. But of course, your engagement with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, both as staff and customers, goes back much, much further than that. And of course, visually representing our people and our cultures on your stamps, and most recently on your delivery vans, is further demonstration.
Why do we need reconciliation? I think without it, there's no chance of moving forward. I think in anything that's perceived to be a wrong, there needs to be a right. And by recognising reconciliation and NAIDOC weeks, we then accept the way things were and we move forward from there.
It's a sign of our genuine commitment to Australia's diverse communities and our Indigenous past. And I know it's something that our Indigenous employees and many of us feel very strongly about.
Builds on the idea that we all have a role to play in reconciliation. Reconciliation just is not an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander issue. It's a whole community. Individually, as organisations, and as the entire community, we need to come together and embrace the concept and the meaning of true reconciliation.
I can hear you whispering.
G'day, Chris. How are we?
Hi, Troy. It's lovely to have you, mate. And can I just say thank everyone for joining the live session. My name's Chris Hill, and I'm the National Indigenous Manager for Australia Post, and I'm incredibly proud to have that role on behalf of the organisation, and I proudly get to represent over 1,200 of our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander employees. Can I also say thank you to Leah for her acknowledgement to country, and also acknowledge Rebecca Williams in our team, who's led the session this morning, and all of our employees, Mark, Josh, Paul, and Donna. Thank you for your contributions. I'm a proud Whadjuk Noongar man, born over in Perth, Western Australia, and I'm now joining you actually from my house in Melbourne, Victoria, and it's an exciting opportunity for us to bring the Stretch Reconciliation Action Plan to you today virtually, and to engage all of you across our enterprise. And we're here today to obviously celebrate the launch of this Reconciliation Action Plan, all 38 pages of the content, and it's an amazing document, one that I'm immensely proud, as I said, to represent our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander programs. And I suppose one of the exciting parts about my role is, I suppose, to get to engage with different people in the organisation, to speak and to listen to a whole range of thoughts, and how we should do things, how we should support our people, how we could continue to make an impact and be brave in our support of leadership across the organisation, and importantly have a voice on reconciliation in this country. And I suppose one way we get to do that is engage with different leaders across the organisation, and that's why I'm incredibly proud that we have Troy joining me here today. And of course, Troy, mate, you're joining me from Minchinbury, and I know you're the state operations lead across New South Wales ACT on behalf of Star Track and our Football Deliveries. And I'll let you introduce yourself in a little while. But I suppose I'm proud for a couple of reasons, because I mentioned this document, and I suppose your staff, particularly at Minchinbury, feature quite heavily in this publication, as you know. And I think it's pretty fitting that, I suppose, today I'm joining you from Melbourne into Minchinbury, where we had this opportunity to have a bit of a conversation, particularly around, I suppose, what leadership, about support of the Reconciliation Action Plan, and also in the support of our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. But, mate, if I can perhaps start the conversation off by saying, and probably recognising, I suppose, your incredible support of our Reconciliation Action Plan. And I suppose I'd love to sort of probably pose a question to you about, I suppose, the diversity of workforce. And I know I've been out to Minchinbury a few times, had the great honour sort of coming out there a few times and engaging with your people. And I'm always struck by the diversity that's in your facility out there at Minchinbury. So I suppose from a leader's point of view, how important is it to have that diversity in your workforce?
Great question, Chris, and thanks for the intro, very flattering, and great to join you virtually as well. It's always a good question to answer, and I don't think I ever answer the same way, but I've got to say, when you talk about just diversity to start with, you've got to throw inclusion in there, because if they're not at the same table, they don't have a very positive effect. So let me talk about diversity to start with. So diversity, for me as a leader, and I lead a little over 1,200, including contractors throughout the New South Wales ACT network. Diversity sends out some couple of loud, clear messages, one being certainly engagement, that I as a leader am prepared to engage. And you start winning the battle already if you show your workforce you're prepared to engage. You can't do that without showing your care as well. And I often say to my team, if they get a really difficult question, a lot of the time I end up saying, look, just show your care, and the answers will start to come to you from there. So, diversity, that's some of the key messages that it sends for me. Then you put the business hat on. So me as a leader with the business, it's a fairly challenging business to run, extremely rewarding, but when you have diversity in your teams, and I often talk about my direct reports. So I have 10 direct reports. A lot of people say that's too many. And I probably really disagree because they are so diverse as well. And I could get some more diversity in there. But the perspective that I have is when you go to make a business decision, we get together frequently, and I've got regional managers as far away as Orange, Tamworth, some down the southern regions as far away as Albury. But we get together either virtually, like we're doing here, Chris, or we get together in the same room, or we meet at a different town each time. And I get to experience 10 different viewpoints as a minimum. So because we portray that diversity and inclusive message throughout our teams, they've generally got their teams together. They've developed a pretty good approach, a pretty good opinion for the business issue that we have. We then come together as a team of 11 with my 10 direct reports, and I'm not the senior guy in the room. I'm just one of 11 in a team. And because of that diversity and inclusion, I end up with generally 10, 11, maybe similar ideas, but if they are different, I actually hope they are, because generally one of their ideas is the right one, and I just have to make the call on which one it is. So I guess that's a really long-winded way to say, that's what it means to me, and you can't fake that. And when you do it well, business becomes much less challenging to run.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a couple of sort of themes they're trying to pick up. And I think you've spoken passionately about, I suppose, that team that is around you and supports you, and those 10, as you said, that you mentioned, those 10 direct reports. And I suppose, I know, we've been talking about for a good couple of years, 3 years perhaps, about leadership and what it means for our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander employees, and to have, I suppose, greater representation, supervisors, of managers, team leaders, of shift managers, of senior supervisors, in operations. And I think that's critical for a number of reasons. And I suppose I'm really interested to get your thoughts on your leadership and support, particularly of one program. And Beck mentioned it a little bit earlier, and Paul and Donna spoke to the Emerging Leaders program. And I know you've been really a massive supporter, not only of your employees from Star Track and Mitchenberry, going through, but for all the participants, in that program. So I suppose maybe if we can, just to sort of talk through a little bit about the Emerging Leaders program. Why is it important for us as an organisation to support such a program for us?
Yeah, look, I'll answer that question, Chris. I guess starting off with the broader aspect of what Australia Post does, because it's I've been in several very large organisations, some larger than the APG group. So when you look at the development that you have in each organisation, Australia Post actually put programs out there and genuinely follow them through to fruition, and you see a lot of success come out of that. So it's fairly inspiring when you come into this group, and the Emerging Leaders course is one that's particularly inspired me, because there's certainly no giving up, and Simone and Beck are just absolutely vibrant individuals with pursuing any opportunities as a result of the course, and getting people involved in the course. And Chris, you and I are always talking about it and where it can go from here and how we do it. So to be in an organisation that actually embraces it and grabs hold of it, it just makes a whole lot of sense, because we invest significantly in our leaders in this business, and it's not just the Emerging Leaders course. There's many courses and many developments of developing of people that we do throughout the organisation. And we spend a lot of time and invest a hell of a lot in our leaders. So why wouldn't we embrace the fruits of their labour and grab hold of some of these leaders? So. And I guess for me it becomes quite selfish, and as soon as I switched on to what you guys were running, and I joined in late November 17, I think I found out about this in February 18, and I'd been involved with it in my previous organisation, and it just really never took off. So it never got the backbone that it needed, and it never got the participants it needed. But this one was different, and when I saw the enthusiasm of certainly the three of you, and certainly Anna Van Gorder as well, I thought I want a piece of this. And I think the first time I was involved, it was in Strawberry Hills. I think it was a dinner, or very light dinner, and I listened to some of the leaders. And when we started that journey, it started out that I was watching some of the most introverted, quiet, shy individuals that I've ever seen before. And then I followed the course through, and when you get to the other end, the confidence that you see in these individuals, the changes in the approach, it goes from you might have asked for a volunteer to speak or do acknowledgement to country, and no one would put their hand up. At the other end of it, you get everyone putting their hand up, and that's the big difference for me. So when you see that, I want to grab hold of that, and the minority groups are often lost. There's hidden talent which we don't embrace, and I guess previous experience showed that the Indigenous group is one to be very watchful of, because probably not unlike yourself, Chris, and Beck and Simone, Indigenous can sometimes be a little shy. Obviously you don't exhibit that too much, Chris, so you've overcome that. And if you're not aware of that, and you don't see people on the Emerging Leaders course, I can miss that. So the selfish side for me is there's a lot of hidden talent in there, and I want them in my business. And fortunately, I've got some names that, and some of the people you saw sitting here today, they're in my business now. And I'm rapt about it because they are genuinely leaders, and you guys have brought that out with the Emerging Leaders course. So.
Yeah, I mean, Troy, I suppose, you've just started. I'd love to pick up that point that you just mentioning there, and I suppose it's that the talent, and particularly through your network and through those the facilities that you manage across New South Wales and ACT. And there's been some amazing people, all alumni, all graduates of the program, amazing, in themselves, but. I suppose it's that impact. I suppose Paul Darden talked a little bit earlier about the confidence and the safety of more of our Aboriginal employees identifying openly, being proud to be an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander person, being part of that group and part of that mob mentality, within the organisation. And openly embracing and sharing that culture, with other colleagues on the floor. So I suppose from a facility point of view, and as a leader, as a senior leader within the operations, I mean that when we think about our sort of values, of empowerment, inclusivity, for instance, yep. I mean that I suppose that's the link, isn't it? That's the business link, and that's why we invest in programs such as the Emerging Leaders, isn't it? Because we can see that link in our talent going out on there, and so I suppose how does it make you feel as a leader when you had a role to play in that?
It's almost somewhat relief. So it's been a 3-year journey for me so far, and still going strong. And what we started out with was I think I knew of 2 or 3 Indigenous employees on site here at Minchinbury, very quiet individuals. Didn't really want to go anywhere, and it's almost like it was a struggle for them day to day just to show up. As time moves on and you show that diversity and you have that outward display of, hey, we're an inclusive business, and we're an engaging business, and we want to get all these leaders into our business and give them opportunities. And Paul talked and Rebecca referred to Paul and his involvement with the leadership on site, and just having Paul's presence here has enabled some of our Indigenous to more freely come forward and identify as Indigenous, and we've been able to embrace that and develop them and have those succession plans now, whereas otherwise they may have been a little too introverted and not come out. But I think me as a leader, and when you look at some of the personal stories, that's a rewarding bit for me. And I often have even yourself, Chris, and Beck and Simone thanking me for the contribution I make, but I don't see it that way. I see it as I'm actually getting rewards for you guys letting me be included in all of the initiatives that you have. And the individual impact, I remember I often reflect on this. You heard from young Josh earlier. Now the interview process that we went through to get Josh on board, there was some, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but I think there were some 15 odd applicants, and anyone that's ever interviewed an Indigenous employee or potential employee, it's tough. It's tough to interview them. You've got to sort of bring them out of their shell first, so you can actually see what's beneath the surface. And I guess my naivety didn't allow me to realise that was a lot of the culture for the Indigenous people. And when you understand that, when you get to know them a whole lot more, you can break down those barriers and give them that confidence. But the individual stories that are in pretty much each and every one of the team, it's not a matter of days before you can get through. It's a matter of months before certainly before I gain their trust and those barriers are broken down. And once you break those down, the world just opens up. And I guess the rewarding bit is that those individuals have been given opportunity, and it's not just me, it's certainly my managers. They've been given that opportunity. We've been able to embrace the investment we've put into our leadership, and we can hopefully have them with APG Group for a long and successful career.
Yeah, this is probably a question without notice, but it's more of an observation, I would say. But it's like I suppose that talent that's come through that program, and particularly some talent that hasn't necessarily been in your network. I know, like there's been a couple of participants in the program that have come from different locations, and they've chosen to sort of come and join your network, and I'm not going to name drop because I don't want to embarrass anyone who might be sitting in the room there with you, but I suppose the leadership, and I just wanted to call it out. I mean, I suppose it's about that mentoring, that coaching. I think it's why everyone has a role, and it's important that we know that our leaders in particular, it's critical for their support to ensure that we are all successful in the outcomes that we want to drive for the Reconciliation Action Plan, not only for the next 2 years as an organisation, but beyond that, really creating a cultural change, a difference, and encouraging our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people to go for those roles, to become a people leader, to become a supervisor of others, to become a leader of others. It's really important. So I suppose probably one thing I just want to talk about is I suppose that coaching and mentoring aspect. I know there's one particular person that you have done that for, and I suppose maybe is there a piece of encouragement we could provide to other leaders potentially that might be thinking of doing something similar, about mentoring and about supporting our Aboriginal employees to be the best they can be, to encourage them to consider taking that next step?
Yeah, that's always a great question, Chris, and one which I hope all the emerging leaders as a minimum embrace. But I guess, again, business perspective, when you take on a business, any level of leadership, I always say, maybe it's not quite accurate or comfortable, but you've got to make yourself redundant. And that's succession planning, really. That's what that's about. So for me, if I put a selfish twist on it, if I'm to further my career and I'm to take opportunities, I need to make sure I've looked after my boss and made sure that my role can have a successor move into it and almost a seamless transition. So when you look at the coaching and mentoring piece, a couple of bits of advice I certainly have for our emerging leaders and our future potential leaders, not specifically Indigenous, but certainly those with the program we have. Reach out to those senior leaders. Chris, you mentioned the young lady who reached out and was after a mentor. And I found it odd at the time, although it was an avenue to use, but it was through LinkedIn that we actually connected. Yet I'd been in the same room as her in Strawberry Hills. So, and that just shows that introversion, what you can experience in the Indigenous culture, but certainly connect through LinkedIn. Jump into the business org structures and have a look at a successful leader that you think, hey, I'd like to be like that person. And go and annoy them. Go and see if they're willing to offer to mentor and coach you, because I've yet to hear a leader that says no. It's always a yes. So I always encourage that, and always the ultimate bit of advice I do give future emerging leaders. We're all creatures of habit in general. We don't like change. I say to forget about that, even if it's for a split second, and just say yes to an opportunity. Whether you think you can do it or not, say yes, and the conversations that evolve after that with the manager, through the interview process, through talking to your peers, you get a really good feel, and no manager is going to hire you to fail. Nobody does that. So that's the bits of advice. Certainly reach out for a mentor and/or coach. They are different, and just say yes. Just say yes to having a go, and you'll be quite surprised how successful you can be.
Yeah, look, amazing, Troy. Hey, I wish we could have another half an hour to sit virtually around the screen and talk about the amazing impact. I just probably would say thank you on behalf of all of our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander employees. I think it's critically important for the success of what we do to have leaders across the organisation that bring a human side, to the support of our programs, that back our people in, hold our people to account like any other employee across this organisation, which is critically important, but also to go above and beyond and provide that personal sort of mentoring and coaching like you mentioned. And I know look, it's definitely the outcomes are there already. You know, we've got some amazing people that have chosen to come over, join your team, are making an impact. Yes. And I just wanted to say thank you on behalf of your consistent sort of passion and drive and motivation to make sure that this particular document, Emerging Leaders being a really integral program of our work, remains important and remains ever so strong. So Troy, thank you, mate. I really appreciate your time today.
Absolute
pleasure,
also
Chris. For listening our team there in Minchinbury, and no doubt we'll speak soon. So guys, what we're about to do now is we're going to have an amazing performance by Zoe Brown and with Christine Arnoux. Hopefully you might recognise the song, but I'm really honoured that now I can sort of throw to Zoe and Christine to share a performance with you.
Thanks, Chris.
Check. We're observing COVID safety distancing. I'm going to kick off this little short set with a song in my mother's language of Kalau Kawauya. It's called Kulba Yadai, Kulba meaning old and Yadai meaning, well, I guess it could mean words, it could mean language, it could mean stories, but it really is paying homage to the way that we pass down cultural information from generation to generation, oral traditions. Warupau Yang Wakai is kind of a metaphor for the sound. It's the sound of drums, but it's a metaphor for the voices of the old ones that live in the wind and that pass through us and go to the next generation. This is Kulbayadai. Kulbayadai, 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 ya ba Kulbayadai, Kulbayadai. Kumbaya Daye.
Hi everyone, it's Chris back here again, and can I just say that was such a powerful performance by Zoe and Christine, and yeah, it's always amazing to see our youth not only embracing their culture but sharing it, and I'm so thankful. I know Zoe, I've met Zoe, and I'm incredibly proud of her, and Christine as well. I mean, Christine has joined us on several occasions to share and be part of us across NAIDOC and National Reconciliation Week last year, of course. So hopefully you recognised Christine's song, and again, it's amazing to have the support of some of Christine's talents and standing in the community to join us. So what we're going to do, guys, for the next 10 minutes or so, is really I'm incredibly proud for the three of us. I mean, Simone Sexton's joined us. Hi Simone, and obviously Rebecca's joined me again. And what we want to do is just there's some questions that we're going to sort of pose around the sort of the themes of the Reconciliation Action Plan, and it's just an opportunity for us to share some Q&A with you, and just to talk about some really important topics that's contained within our Reconciliation Action Plan. But Sim, I'm going to come to you straight away, and I know at the start of our session today, of our live stream event, we saw that really fantastic film, talking about, I suppose, our history and a journey of Reconciliation Action Plan, of our commitments, I should say, for reconciliation. And I know you've taken the lead in that film, but it wasn't just about the film. I know there's a process and the importance about trying to do our journey and our impact justice, since all those years ago. So I'm really sort of, if you can share a little bit about your personal involvement in the film itself, the engagement with Uncle and the community point of view, and what was our intent with that film?
Okay, thanks, Chris. Hi, everyone. I'm Simone Sexton. I'm the Indigenous Inclusion Consultant for VICTARS WA and SA, proud Mulunjali woman. And I'd also like to just pay my respect to the Wurundjeri people from the Kulin Nation, from the land in which I'm speaking from today. So interesting question. Thanks for asking, Chris. It was definitely a challenge because I've never really delved in that kind of arena before, but the concept or the storyboard behind that opening film was really some reflections just on the past, and also to highlight, this very long and continuous journey that as an organisation and also as a people that we've had together, that a lot of people who are watching today may not, have realised. So the challenge, of course, was to fit all of that content into a couple of minutes, of course, so you didn't get to feature as much as I would have liked to. Otherwise, we'd be watching an hour-long movie, and I'm sure people wouldn't stick around for that. So it was definitely very interesting. So the concept of the storyboard behind it was, I want it to be told like in a dreaming story, how our elders would share knowledge and pass it down through story. And so I wanted to provide that touch and feel for this film as an opening with Uncle, coming in and sharing this content and sharing our story, and handing that knowledge down to our people here at Australia Post to take along with them. So the idea, of course, was to have the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander logo, which is made up of all the colours from both flags, flowing, because it represents the flowing river or creek, always making its way forward out to the ocean. So an ongoing journey forward. And then when you see the film, there's the little stamps that are flowing alongside us, and that represents Australia Post as an organisation, always moving alongside, always moving with us, always working with us, alongside us, not for us. And there's a big difference, you know, and I wanted to represent that in a story, and also with some of those captions, just sharing some of those infographics of some of those amazing achievements and reflections from Mary Ellen Cooper from 1870 through to employment strategies, 6 of them that were created in the 80s, well before our first well before Reconciliation Australia's actual creation of the organisation. So I wanted to share some of that information and some of that timeline and story. But the entire, you know, concept is about us always moving forward with each other, working alongside each other as an organisation, as a people, and always looking to the future as we continue to evolve this relationship on our reconciliation journey. So that's it really in a nutshell.
Yeah, like it's an amazing film, and obviously people watching would have seen it at the beginning of our session, and then we've got obviously the film's been shared across our operations, across all of our facility screens, and as you say, it's only a small snapshot, but hopefully it just sort of recognises those that have come before us, and then those that will be part of us going forward. And I think that's I think your film. And you know, the people that are involved is a real credit. So I encourage everyone, if you haven't seen it, please watch the film, proudly share the film, and it's something that we should be incredibly proud of. But it also gives us purpose going forward, particularly the next 2 years, but longer than that as well. Cool. Thanks, Em.
So I'm going to move along to Miss Rebecca Williams. So. Rebecca, as you know, engaging our mob, but also our facilities and our managers is pretty much at the heart of what you and I do, you know, out there in the networks. And it's also one of the core components of our employee care program. So why do you believe, as the consultant, why do you believe it's so important that we establish and grow this continuous connection?
I think, you know, I think being out on the ground and actually in the facilities, it really makes a huge impact. We're there, our faces are there, and people really want to hear about what we do. They're intrigued to know what we do. So, you know, we can work from head office. We showed that we could do that through COVID, really, on the screens, right? But I feel like you need to have that personal impact with our managers as well as our staff. When our managers understand what we do, it just makes a huge impact for our staff as well, I think. It's super important that we build those relationships. You know, there's some staff out there that might be one person that works in one facility and they don't know where all the other mob are around them. So it's really important for that connection. So the network meetings through the ECP that we do, I feel like that's super important, because if we bring our mob together from other sites, they don't feel so isolated. And that's one thing that we definitely need to make sure we don't do. So having those ECP network meetings, they're super important for our people. So yeah, so Chris, so one of the things I wanted to actually ask you then is, so through the network meetings, I find that that a lot of mob out there either don't want to identify, or, I mean, we touched on it today, because their cultural connection is a little bit lost, right? So I suppose, why do you think that it's such a struggle still with identity?
Yeah, well, look, it's I'll probably answer that question from a personal reflection point of view, and I'll probably talk a little bit about my mother. So I said at the start, I'm a proud sort of Whadjuk Noongar man, you know, proudly born in Perth, you know, proudly represent Western Australia, even though I live in Melbourne now. But I suppose I'm always conscious of, you know, my mother, and my mum's Aboriginal and my father's non-Aboriginal. But my mum was born in 1952, and she grew up in a small country town in WA called Minginyu, and for those colleagues joining us from WA, you might know what I'm talking about. But it's just a typical country town, wheat belt farming community. But unfortunately, what was so typical about this particular place as well is that this town had a large Aboriginal reserve, and for a majority of our mob, they were required to live in the reserve on the fringe of the town, and not be part of the town. My mum, so my mum's a Harris. So Heelan's my father's name, but my mum's a Harris, and the Harrises were one of 6 Aboriginal families at the time that were permitted to by the Chief Protector of Aborigines in WA at the time to live in the town, and my grandfather chose to do that for his wife and his six children. One of those children being my mother. So my mum and her brothers and sisters could go to school, go to primary school, go to the high school, allow him to have an employment and provide for the family, and he chose to do that with as I said, 5 other Aboriginal families at the time. Now, that was a difficult choice because for him to do that, he had to give up, for all intents and purposes, he had to give up his Aboriginality. And for a lot of our Aboriginal employees and for a lot of our staff that may be watching, you may know a little bit about the history and the impact on that, what it means for a lot of Aboriginal families. But by doing that, then, we had to, he wasn't able to speak language, you had to not practice culture. You had to sort of isolate out from some of the family, of course, that were living in the reserve. So look, the impact is massive on identity. Look, I always grew up knowing who I was and being proud of who I was, and there was no identity issues for me personally. But I suppose the impacts for our family have the impacts are different. The loss of language, the disconnection sometimes with country. There's a lot of effects still right now. And I suppose I mentioned my mum was born in 1952, so we're not talking. We're talking one generation. We're talking people. In my case, my mother or my aunties and and uncles that are still alive now, and are fairly old, but they're still with us, and that pain and that hurt is very much there. So, that's just one example. That's a personal example from myself, and that impact. And I suppose that probably drives me. It drives me to do what I do for not only for Australia Post, but I do what I do for my family. I do it for my kids, and hopefully I do it well for all of our 1,200 Aboriginal employees to be proudly talking about our culture, our people, and the rightful place that our community and our mob have in this country. And that's why, I get to come to work every day, be true who I am, represent who I am. I represent my family. I proudly represent my family every day at work, and I get to hopefully have a positive impact, not only on us as a small little team, but everyone out there in a different way. So look, it's incredibly important work. It's so personal, and what I've just shared today is just a little bit about my particular sort of circumstances and the impact that it can have for our mob. So, but I think, but thanks, Beck. But I think Sim, on that particular question, one that always comes up is about when we talk about identity, the challenges. We talk about who we are as a people, and even when people sort of look at the Reconciliation Action Plan, there's all different shades of colour. Can I say there's all different types of what an Aboriginal person looks like, and I know it comes up, but I know it's come up for you personally. So I was wondering if I can sort of throw it to you and just talk a bit about that impact, that experience of being an Aboriginal person, and the way you look, the way I look, the way that Beck looks, and the difference.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Well, I'm going to quote Uncle Billy. So those who have had the opportunity to, be a part of Uncle Billy's cultural intelligence program. As Uncle Billy would always say, because when he and I used to talk, you know, he knew that I struggled a little bit with my identity because, you know, and that was just really my own personal perception as well. So, and I had to sort of come to terms with that because, you know, I wanted to be a little bit darker and more noticeable because that's what I felt people really perceived what Aboriginal people were meant to look like, you know. So I struggled with that because of that perception. So as Uncle Billy would always say, you know, goes, Bub, you're always, you know, you're a cup of coffee, you know, no matter how milky you make that coffee, okay, you're always going to be coffee. So I'm a milky cup of coffee, as Uncle Billy would say. And so for me, it was more about the personal journey of just accepting, you know, my identity and my heritage and not be so centered or focused on what I thought I should look more like in terms of that. So, yeah, there's been some struggles, you know, because I easily fit into the non-Indigenous community in any kind of situation, and yet I feel I have to always overcompensate when I'm amongst mom and sort of really share the entire lineage of my cultural history, just so that they understand that's who I am. It's about really just being comfortable in your own skin and sort of embracing that. And whilst there is parts that are quite disconnected, and you know, there's plenty of mob out there that, you know, are still on their journey to self-discovery, it's about just loving and accepting who you are, and not what that, you know, people's or, you know, history books' perception of what our people should look like. So, and that to me, like, it's been a struggle, but I'm starting to really learn to, like, not overcompensate, and I'm starting to just embrace me. So,
perfect.
So I'm going to now throw that same question over to you, Miss Beck, being on the absolute opposite side of the coin, because you and I have been, you know, in hotels and whatnot together, and we've both had different kinds of experiences when we've been together. So how does that impact you on the other side of the coin, and also, you know, perhaps even your family, your kids as well?
Yeah, so I obviously, like you were talking about, look the part of an Aboriginal person, right? That's the case, and I love it. I didn't know a lot about my culture though, and do you know how hard that is when you actually, you know, you have that vision of being Aboriginal, right? But you don't know a lot, but people expect you to know everything because you look that way. So yeah, I was kind of on the other flip of it and just didn't. I struggled a little bit myself personally as well. I grew up not knowing a lot about my culture, and when I lived in Queensland, I grew up living in Queensland, and my mum would put me into school things, and I would learn your way, sis, the Mununjali way, which still was great, and it was awesome to learn culture, but it still wasn't right. Like, I don't know. But then when I moved to Sydney, and I met a lot of my extended family, and because my mob are from Dunghutti and Gomeroi from New South Wales, I don't know, I started learning story and hearing my journey, like their journey, and then it made me feel a lot more confident in who I was as a young woman. So I've been lucky enough to be able to do this through work, and then to be, I'm hoping, a role model to my 3 children. I've got 3 kids, and when you talk about family, sis, to my oldest daughter, Zoe, who you saw dancing before, that was my daughter, so I'm pretty proud of that girl. She is my oldest daughter, and then I have my little boy, Noah, who both look pretty much a spit out of my mouth, right? But then I've got my 17-year-old boy that you'll be able to see after we've had this yarn come and play Didge. And his struggle with identity has been, you know, he's completely different. He doesn't look like me, but he's got the same parents. It just shows that genetics really, you know, it doesn't, you kind of just throw it all in and stir it up and you get what you get, you know. And I see my son, like I've seen him grow so much since he's become a young man, and the fact that I've then been able to have that confidence in myself and learn my story, that I'm able to then help him find his identity. And you'll see him today when he plays, he's just, you'll see him, he's a proud boy and loves playing that didge, because that's something he, as a young Aboriginal man, can own. Because, you know, you and I, sis, we can't play that didge. I don't know, Chris, can you actually play the didge? Can you play? I know you're allowed to, but can you play it?
Yeah, I can get a sound, but I can't hold a tune.
Yeah. So I mean, you know, it's different journeys, different people, and we talked about that this earlier in the panel. So, yeah, so interesting kind of conversation that we can have about this. You know, it's a continual conversation, and it's something that we should definitely continue to help support our staff through that. And, you know, Chris, with our Reconciliation Action Plan, so we should probably, you know, we're getting probably close to time. So I think, what's the call to action? What do you want everyone out there to really take from our new plan, and what can they do to help with the actions?
Yeah, well, let me say that part of my sort of closing and response to that, I am conscious of time, and hopefully people have been able to sort of stick with us, because I suppose what we wanted to do today was just have this conversation and finish off and talk about the realness of the RAP and how the RAP impacts everyone's lives every day. And we've just sort of been here talking at the end as 3 examples of that. But I would say my call to action is I just encourage everyone to access the document, read the document, understand as an organisation, you know, through our board, through our executive team, you know, through our GMs, through our head ofs, through all of our employees in this organisation, what leadership of reconciliation means at Australia Post Group. And it should be a document that everyone feels incredibly proud of. I'm really, you know, I can't wait to sort of get our responses from our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander employees who have contributed to the development of this plan and able to share that to our workforce about how we progress, how we're being held accountable, and how we're being measured on our performance in regards to leadership of reconciliation. And it's a document that I would say everyone has a right to be active and a participant in. And that's my call to action, is just to say, understand reconciliation is a process for all of us, for us as an organisation. I get to sort of join you. We get to join you in this environment, and it's at the end of what we need to do. But there's certainly a lot of great work, a lot of contribution. There's some amazing sort of work that we're going to be doing over the next 2 years, and that's my call to action, is for people to understand it. I should probably take this opportunity, Sim and Beck, probably just to say a couple of quick thank yous as we close out and before I pass to Justin. But particularly, I want to acknowledge our executive sponsor, and Rod Barnes, and for his leadership, for his support of our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander programs, particularly the Reconciliation Action Plan. And of course, Rod is our EGM of deliveries, but he's also taken up this additional responsibility for us to be the executive sponsor of the Reconciliation Action Plan. So I wanted to personally thank Rod. Of course, I need to sort of probably thank also Sue Davies, who's our Executive General Manager of People and Culture. And Sue, you know, does have the forward message in the RAP. You know, I obviously thank Sue for her unwavering support, not only of us and our team, but for all of our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander employees, and particularly our RAP working group, our RAP implementation group. Mm-hmm. For all of you out there, you know, we're going to say a massive thank you individually to you, but your contributions, your design, your influence, I suppose, in how we brought this Reconciliation Action Plan together for the organisation, and which was approved in December of last year by our board. It's an amazing piece of work that all of you should be immensely proud. So I just wanted to sort of finish off by saying thank you to everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is our inaugural sort of live stream event. It's an amazing that we could come to you today to connect to you via literally our house and through our facility at Minchinbury. Thank you, Troy. Thank you, Trent, for hosting us at Minchinbury. And And it's been an amazing day to share what the Reconciliation Action Plan means to you. But, Beck, I'm going to quickly throw to you because you mentioned Justin. He is your boy, and I think you should be the person who proudly introduces Justin to close us out and draw a close to today's session.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. I just want to personally thank everybody for joining, for all panellists, Troy, Trent, all of the Minchinbury Star Trek today for turning this place into a full studio. And I'm really appreciative of all your help around this. I also want to acknowledge and thank DPLR, who actually are the amazing people behind this actual live stream. Like, I would never have been able to do what they have pulled off, and I'm so very, very, very thankful. So thank you very much to you all. So without further ado, we're going to close out the session with my young boy. Well, he's a young man, 17. His name is Justin Brown, and he was a Christmas casual with us down at Wollongong delivery facility. And so, yeah, I'd just like to introduce JJ to the stage and for him to close out and play the didge. Thank you.